So, second part of my new series about Bicep in virtual networks. So, as the title probably will say, it's a little bit in the past for me right now. I'm going to talk about virtual machines. Last time, I showed you some stuff that I would do when it comes to deploying virtual networks using Bicep. So we did some stuff, deployed a VNet. I will recap this real quick because we will copy this over and start a little bit different today based on what we did last time. So you should definitely check out the first part of the video here or the series. And today we're going to try to deploy virtual machines in a more, let's say, decent manner instead of clicking in the Azure portal like idiots. We don't do that, and we try to do it the right way. So with that, let me hop over to my screen. And I have to remember that my face will get in the way probably. And I will take my time today, and we will going probably to hit a lot of stuff, but let's start with the recap. So as always, stuff like that will be part of I will put the link in the description, of course, but this is what we did last time. So let me open VS Code in that folder real quick. So what we did basically was we had a main Bicep. I talked with you about parameters, passing parameters in using param files. Let me zoom a little bit. I also talked about how I like to structure stuff. And then we created a VNet Bicep file, which is this one. We used some methods based on some basic CIDR notations to calculate subnets for us so that we can have repeatable the same subnet all the time for this virtual network, which is pretty easy currently. And this is where we're going to start today, but not in the source code. I will leave it as it is and create a copy. Let me see if I can make it VNet into VM. But I think I need to do the -R. So let's look into VM. Is that copied over? Yeah, it's interesting. That's not what I wanted to do. RF VM. And let's make MD VM. There it is. And copy everything from VNet / if I can type, to VM. It's just, probably this is not going to work. To VM. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Code VM. Am I finally where I wanted to be? No, I'm not. So I am pretty an idiot into VM. Oh, because I need to do the star and then I need to move it out into the folder, I think. No, everything is fine. It's just a remnant. Okay, so I copied over basically all this stupidity from my side was there to copy over files. Okay. What I'm going to do today is I try to extend this so that we will deploy VMs, a single one probably, into this. So in order to do this properly, first of all, let's talk about how I want to tackle this. Let me open real quick on the backside here some drawing that we can talk about what we actually want to do. So actually, let me copy this and that and make a new so that you don't get distracted. So maybe we talk about this. So this is our resource group. Sorry for not showing it. Here we go. So what I'm going to do, because what we did, we had a resource group, and this resource group had a VNet, which is not visible here. Let's put one in here. And this is not what I'm going to show. There is this group thingy. I'm not going to do that. So we had a VNet. Let me add a text and say, okay, that's the VNet. And I think there is the Azure network. And virtual network is basically, which symbol is it? You have to be very precise here. Oh, there it was. Azure virtual network. Okay, here we go. This should be virtual network. And in that virtual network, what we had deployed, at least one resource group brings us to front. So we had a resource group, not a resource group, a subnet, this one, and there we want to deploy a VM, which will get some IP. We don't know yet which IP, but this is basically what's going to happen. So the problem with this is, it's so bad. If you can't do stuff the right way, you have to do it another way. So this is probably, everybody looking at this who is familiar with Draw.io will probably say, what an idiot. And they are right. So here we go. So we are not going to start with the virtual machine actually, because doing it the right way, we already have the VNet. We're not going to deploy the VM because deploying a VM actually means to deploy a lot of stuff. The first thing I'm going to deploy into the resource group is a network security group. That's the first thing we want to talk about. Security, where is that? Yeah, nearby, but it did it. I think it's that. So that shield, and obviously it has something to do with security, is going to be deployed first, but not in the subnet or anything else, but in the resource group. In order to do this correctly, what I actually want to do is I want to have this the VNet resource group. And today I'm going to deploy, including the subnet and everything. What's going on, by the way? I need to be, yeah. So, and then I'm going to deploy another resource group, which is going to be the resource group for the actual VM, because I like things in order. So this is a group, that's why I copied it. And now I have this. So, and here I'm going to deploy this thing, and this is going to be the RGVM, let's say. That's why I copied over everything, because I want to shift gears a little bit. Okay, so doing this will allow us that all the clutter which has to do with the virtual networking will be in one resource group, and all the actual stuff like connecting to the virtual machine and stuff like that will happen on another resource group. Gives us the opportunity to separate things a little bit better. Networking stuff on the right side, virtual machine stuff on the left side. Plus, it could be another resource group when we are going to plan to put something else into this VNet, connecting to the VNet here, which could be anything like databases, storage accounts, whatever. And then we could make another resource groups, keeping things nicely ordered. So let's concentrate still on that one. Let's do some stuff here to our main bicep. So currently, this is going to be project name. And this is not what it's going to be anymore. Now we add VNet to this, and the project name was demo. It wasn't. Where's my project name? CF. Okay, CF codingfreaks. So I'm adding this, and I'm calling this the VNet group. Okay. So from that moment on, what I will do, I will not longer be based on one resource group. I will have several resource groups. My VNet will stay in that resource group, and all the VNet related stuff will come here. And then we will add another resource group for putting VM stuff in. So let's do that. So let's add another one, which is like the VM group called whatever VM, then stage name. And then what we end up doing later, we add a module to deploy not the VNet stuff, but the VM stuff. In order to do this correctly, let's look on my subscription. I have the stuff from last time here. This is going to die right now. Remove AZ resource group, name whatever this is. This is not sample anymore. This is now demo. And now let's add the fourth parameter. So it does not ask me if he really needs to delete the resource group. So I will probably pause a lot of times in this recording because, you know, rebuilding all of that, you don't need to look it up. Let me just wait until it's deleted, and then I continue my recording. Okay, it says it's deleted. Let's look it up. If it's really deleted, it is. There is this resource group is gone. And if you if we now go to the VM folder now, remember that we had this deploy script in place. where we conveniently could just deploy whatever, however we wanted. So let's try out if this still works. So I'm just calling the deploy piece one. If you want to know what's behind here, what's in that file, and why is it this way, look the first part, as I said. So let's perform the deployment. One condition, remember, is I needed, for all of those operations, I needed to be logged in using Azure PowerShell into my tenant and my subscription, the correct one, obviously. So don't forget to do that. That was a little fast, if you ask me. So let me check what actually happened. This was a little too fast. It could be that it was cached, but let's see. So what do we have? We have actually 2 resource groups. That's okay. Deleting took way longer. So we have a VNet demo and a VM resource group. Let's look it up in the portal because, you know, that's where the portal is for. So this was the old resource group that should be removed. And let's look up resource groups and let's CF. And then what we see is, we see actually 2. This is the VNet resource group and it does have a VNet. And this thing has subnets like it was before, gateway subnet, VM subnet. This is where we're going to deploy stuff. Great. It was very fast. I think it was cached somewhere. So if you delete a resource and redo it again, probably it's just moving it technically, or it's pretty fast to deploy VNet. Anyways, so this stays empty, but this already is there, right? Nice. And now we have this, and what I showed you is the next thing which needs to appear here is the network security group. So let's talk about what it is and what it not is. So when we look up Azure Network Security Group, let's look up the definition. You can use an Azure Network Security Group to filter network traffic between Azure resources in Azure Virtual Networks. A network security group contains security rules. We will do that allow, deny, inbound, whatever. So, in other words, what it not is, and never confuses, it's not a firewall. There are products which are firewalls in Azure, and they do a lot more than just traffic filtering, but it is a traffic filter, which means, and it's surprisingly complex if you look into more details of network security groups, because you all of a sudden, you understand, oh, there's something like Azure, what is it, not resource tags, but service tags, which is like when one Azure thing talks over a network to another network resource thing in Azure, like let's say a web app talks to a storage account, actually when a network security group is in between, this thing will filter the traffic based on, is it a web app that tries to talk to me? That's possible, which is in fact pretty weird because in the real world there's nothing like it. But obviously Microsoft can do it because they own Azure, of course. It's based on IP addresses, by the way. Besides of that, here it is, service tags. Speaking of, so besides of that, what we're going to do is, okay, let's do the network security group. But why do we need one? So when we deploy the VM later on, what actually needs to happen is that the VM is terminated somewhere in a subnet of that VNet. So if this is the VM subnet, this is, what was it? VM subnet, let's say. This is how we named it, this one. And what actually will happen is we will have something in that, let's do a circle. And let's say we don't know what this is. But we need something in that subnet so that the VM can connect to it. So now we control the traffic flowing from and to that virtual machine using this network security group, which, by the way, will also be connected to this subnet. That's the beauty. And maybe to other subnets as well. So you deploy a resource, then you define if it's connected to which subnet it should be connected. That's what we do. And then we get to define rules here which control how traffic is going in and out to that or from that VM. Why do we need it? Well, actually, when we deploy a VM, what we will do here in order to test our deployment, we will connect to it later using another thing, which has a question mark here. But anyways, which is outside of that, actually coming in and then finding the VM. Let me draw this correctly. This will be, by the way, a public IP, and you will see that. And what this allows us to do is, as a user, that's me, obviously, And what I can do then, hopefully, is go there and do RDP to this machine, because we're going to deploy a Windows machine. So we're not SSHing into it here. We're doing RDP. There are other platforms like Azure Virtual Desktop and Azure Bastion host, which allow you to access your desktop via web protocols instead of opening up a firewall, opening up ports. But anyways, this thing needs to open port 3389. This needs to be 3389, and then I'm using 3389 to actually connect to this thing. Okay, so meaning, dangerously enough, I will open port 3389 all the way through, which obviously shouldn't be the case on public IP addresses. So this will be our red flag. But for the purpose of demo, I will talk about how to replace this in a real world scenario in a corporate environment. But for the purpose of the demo, this is totally okay. Okay, so this is what's going to happen, right? After we deploy the VM, we need to be able to access it. But of course, we want to control which ports this thing is exposing. And this is done by the network security group, which then could be compared to your Windows firewall, which actually can do more. But you know, this network control is done on your Windows firewall, and all the rule sets and stuff looks pretty similar. That's why I think people, and maybe because of the logo, I don't know, but maybe people confused it with an Azure firewall, this is not an Azure firewall, this is a network security group, an NSG. Okay, cool. So let's do it then. Okay, in that VNet, we already have let me make a little room. We have this virtual network here. So now let's deploy the next resource, which is the NSG. This is my variable. Network security groups in Microsoft Network. Latest version, please, and then give me the required properties. So the only thing which is seemingly required, and we already know this is probably not going to happen, is the name of the resource, because we are deploying the resource here. It's not a module, which means this is actually the name which will appear in Azure and not the name of the deployment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the first part. So NSG, and now we will do the suffix again so that our naming convention is in place. And we built the suffix here. It's just lower project name, lower stage name. So we can reuse this. And here we go. It's just another prefix. Nice. So what we actually will do is we will take the same location, so the same Azure region, and then some properties. Let me see. What can we do? So we have flush connection. I actually don't know what this actually is. I would have to read it up, to be honest. So security rules is the things we're going through, and you have an array of objects. Each object here, curly braces, is a security rule. So what we can do, we cannot set the ID. Sadly, it's proposing it. It's not. So we could say this is allow RDP. And then we would say type is there a thing like type? I don't care. Properties of the rule required is, so access would be allow. Direction would be, what is it? Inbound. I think, yes. Priority is something like 100. We talk about this later. And protocol is please TCP. So with this set, we just say, okay, this network security group will have a name, and then that's it. Cool. So if we now look back into the VNet and into the subnets, and then into the resolved subnets, remember how we built this thing? Let us watch for a second how we could connect a network security group to one of the subnets. How is that possible? So what actually would happen? Let me remove that for a second. So that normally is an array with an object. And then the properties of that thing have a network security group, which in turn has an ID. And then it would be the NSG.ID. This is how you would tell a subnet to use this security group. Okay, so let me take out this here, move it back, use this information and this IntelliSense what I had, add this property here. And now what I'm doing is, remember how I built this variable first part, as I said, now what I'm doing is I'm saying everything needs to be on the, I'm doing this right now. Everything needs to be on this network security group. And this is actually not what I want to do. I want to have it on this subnet. So the gateway subnet will not get this network security group, but both other subnets, all the workload subnets, will get this network security group. So what that means is I'm building a variable here. I'm deploying a resource here, which takes this variable, it points to this variable, which means this needs to go first, and then you can deploy this. Right. So, but now what we did, this now points bicep-wise, this one is pointing to this variable, which means no. We can no longer do that. So the new order of things is we need to deploy this first, then we can build this variable, and then we can deploy this virtual network, which means the order of things is now deploy network security group, then build this variable and all the other ones, and then deploy the VNet. Okay, just saying. So with that in place, let me try this out. Did I store everything? And maybe I should, again, open the terminal here and then do my deployments here. Yeah, so that I'm not switching all too much like I did the last time. So I don't switch tools so much. Okay, let's execute this and see if this actually works. I will pause for a second and coming back when it's done. And no, it's not going to work. It was like 5 seconds later, as always. So this thing now failed. What actually failed? What did I do wrong? The tracking ID is, so it's saying, okay, security rule parameters missing 4 port ranges. So required security rule parameters are missing. Okay, so what could it be? Is that priority direction? Oh yeah, where is actually, there's a lot of stuff missing. So remember that, like I said, give me the required properties. I don't even, yeah, I'm an idiot. So destination port range is, I think it's, what is that, 3389? Is that a string? I think. Yeah. So it's just 3389. Let's try this. Okay, so 3389, if you don't know, is the remote desktop protocol port range. If you're in Windows, you know that kind of stuff. If you don't know what it is, this is the TCP port that the remote desktop protocol of Microsoft uses for stuff like that. So it still is not happy. Let me see. Required blah 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 is missing. Source port ranges, yeah. Source port range is any. Yeah, I could have guessed that, to be honest. But you know, maybe it's good that you see me fail, because stuff like that will probably happen to you as well. Let me just do it, and something else is missing. Message required security rule parameters are missing. Which one? It is source address prefix. Source, what is source address prefix? Let me see. Source address prefix is maybe this as well. I'm not sure. Are we going to, so any incoming requests, or now what? And destination, of course. Destination address prefix, is it this? I am still not sure. Let me see. Protocol is this, this is this. I wasn't aware, because why I'm failing here. I use modules, so like, you know, like a library of stuff. I use that when I deploy virtual machines. That's why I'm not used to know out of my mind what those parameters are. Plus, this thing now, as I said, Bicep modules from Microsoft, and this worked. Yeah, let's see. They are, if I do the required tab, they are not giving me all the required parameters. So I couldn't possibly know which one were required. And like those 4 things were not added as required for me. And I don't like it. Anyways, let's go to the portal. Let's refresh the portal and see there's a network security group. Nice. Let's look up what it did. So we have a mark here, because the Azure portal understands that this is not a good thing. As I said, And now it maybe explains why I added the 100 as the priority, because I know that the 65,000 are there in order to allow us to easily put our rule on the top, which means you have to understand it the way like traffic comes in, and then every rule is interpreted in the order of the priority. And if a rule says allow, if it ends in allow, it ends here and doesn't check this, or that rule. So the logic here being that if none of the specific allow rules are catching, it will fail the request or deny the request, which means this is the way that you whitelist on the top whatever you want to allow. And if you didn't whitelist it, at the bottom there, it will just deny. So that way you exactly know what you are allowing and whatnot. So I'm allowing inbound traffic, so coming from outside into the VNet or into this network security group, and I'm allowing it to be here. So at this point in time, we can look up the subnets that this thing is related to, and it worked. So this network security group is associated to those two subnets, but not to the gateway subnet, to the third one. That's exactly what I did with my Bicep. So I can look it up the other way around. If I look into the VNet, which is actually pretty nice, I have to say, and I'm looking into the subnet, what I instantly see here is that at this overview, those two subnets have a network security group applied to it, and this is no network security group, which actually I like. Okay, so this means now that whatever traffic runs in and out of those two subnets, when traffic is running, this network security group will take care of deciding if this traffic is allowed or not. Great. Let's go back to the drawing board. First of all, we have this in place. Now you think maybe this guy. No. The next thing we need to ensure is that we actually can hook it up here. Like, what is this line even going to? What is this? So it turns out what this is Azure Network Interface. Is that a thing? Yeah, there it is. So we need to do this kind of stuff. So this is a network card, but a virtual one. It's just a simulated one. I actually, I do not know what this actually technically is when we deploy it, but I find this concept of having the network card, kind of a piece of that PC, if you will, as its own resource. I think that is really cool. One of the cool things I just like it when I see it. I will tell you later why. So that is the NIC. So kind of a network card, which we can deploy without even a virtual machine, which is pretty neat. Okay, let's do that. So what we will do is, after we deployed this, and keep an eye on that, I'm not deploying it to the VM. I don't even care. We'll talk about to you why. So let's do the next resource, with it, which is the NIC, network interface. Microsoft Network Interface Endpoint? No, Network Interface. Okay, thank you. And then require properties, although I know it's probably not going to work. So I copy out those two things. Okay. And then what I do is, this is probably better off with NIC. Okay. This is my NIC, and then the properties. What can I say? I think I don't know. I don't need a lot of stuff. So what is it? DNS settings? No, I don't need it. Enable IP4? No. No. Migration network security group? Interesting. We have one. Let's attach it. So actually, let's not do that. I will see, because I'm like to put that in a virtual network. Let's see. What is a NIC type? Okay, we have elastic and standard. I just don't define it. Let's do the default. Private link. No, not going to happen today. And the interesting thing now is, I was remembering that I can put a NIC into a subnet. I cannot do that. I can put it to a network security group. That's what I think what I can do. And the ID of that thing, again, it's the NSG ID. So let's deploy this now. Let's go and try it out. So doing it in Bicep always leaves us with the opportunity to just delete what we did, redo it, and here we go. It's not valid. The tracking ID is what's going on. Network interface must have IP configuration. Okay, got it. So you need an IP configurations. Let's go. What do you want? Name is probably default IP configuration. I don't know. The properties being, what can I do? What is going on? This is private IP address, subnet. Here it is. Okay, that's what I was searching. And then the ID of the thing is the, what was it here? How can I do that? I did that in main. And I said resolve subnet by name. So that's what I want to do, VM subnet. Okay, this is what I need here. He does not know what this is because we need to import this function that I showed you at the top here. Sorry for scrolling, but it's necessary. So VNet is not the thing. This is our subnets property of the VNet. So now we're searching for the VM subnet and doing this. And now I want to remove this again. So now I'm saying, what I'm saying is, hey guys, I do IP configuration and I put the NIC, the network adapter, into the subnet. Because I added the network security group to the subnet, I'm wondering, cannot remember, I'm wondering if this means, hey, this means you don't have to explicitly put the NIC into the network security group because it's inheriting it from the subnet. That's what I'm thinking, at least. Let's see what happens if we accept this deployment. It looks like he's running. And with that, let me make a little break and come back when it's done. Okay, I got some new coffee. And meanwhile, this succeeded. Let's look it up. So let's go to the Azure portal and see what actually happened. Let's go to the resource group, refresh this, and lo and behold, we have a network interface sitting there and kind of waiting for a virtual machine to come and connect to it, not the other way around, which I find funny all the time. So let's first look into the properties. It already got an IP address. So of course, because it's connected, it got an IP address. And watch the IP address. It's 10.0.1.4. Why is it that address? Because it's connected to this VM subnet. Looking into this VM subnet has this VM subnet it is, and this is on the CIDR range 10.0.1, not 10.0.2. This is why, like the DHCP service of that subnet, I told you last time in the first part that there are some resources acting as gateways and DHCP servers, and this is now recognizing, hey, there's a new device, let's give it an IP address. That's what it got. It got an IP address, and now when we look into connected devices, we can see that this virtual network says, hey, I have one connected device, network interface in this subnet with this IP. So you have different ways to look it up. Last thing I want to check on that network security group, did you see that it had network interfaces here and it's not connected? See, so what I said is not true. Just because I deployed it to the same virtual subnet that I created here, it doesn't mean that it says, oh, this network interface is also connected to us. Let's fix this. Let's go here and redo this network security group thingy. So network security group would be the ID of NSG ID. Let's deploy that real quick. Let's clean here and deploy again. You can now see how convenient it is to have this deploy script. It's just in my command history, just deploying the same thing step by step, checking every step and seeing, okay, is it arriving, yes or no? And so the risk is pretty low. As you also can see probably is deploying virtual networking stuff is pretty fast. It's one of the fastest things you can do in Azure because they're pretty much low profile stuff. Not big deployments. They are cached in Azure. They're ready to be deployed. They just assign it to your resource. And it's also because, of course, you very often deploy VNet resources in corporate environments. So it did the provisioning. Let me see. Is it now here? Yes. I just refreshed this, and now this network interface card is connected to the network security group, which is great. Let's go back and see if the NIC sees that as well. I'm not sure. Yeah, attached to network security group. Here it is. That's what we just did with the last setting. And no accelerated networking. I think we should do that, by the way. That's pretty important because I think it does not come with additional cost, if I remember right. Let me see. IP configuration, I guess. Properties and then accelerated. No. Is it here? Enable accelerated networking true. There it is. This is also what I like about Bicep if it works, which is not always the case. Just deploy it again and see if it works. So now we enable this. And what I like about it, you usually are very quick if you see how it's named in the Azure portal. And if you are not unlucky to see something which is very badly done, then it should work. So accelerated networking, where was it? Here, is disabled. Let me refresh it now. And now it's enabled. Great. Okay, with that in place, we have an IP address. Let's copy this over in our chart, which means that this guy will probably get this because it got it from actually this. Okay, so this is how it works. This gets an IP address and gives it to the machine, which is not yet deployed. So we have this in place now. Okay, so next thing, now we have a network interface. Now we're still not deploying the VM. I think at least. We will see how it works. Let me look up something real quick. Okay, I looked it up and I just recognized, yes, we are ready to deploy finally the virtual machine. But I'm not going to do that in this file because remember that this file is only for the networking, virtual network stuff. But actually, I need a new file to deploy the virtual machine. In order to do that, what the virtual machine needs to know is at least the network interface card resource ID. So let's output this from this thing. This is the NIC ID. It's a string and it will be the NIC ID. So we're defining that as an output variable of that Bicep file so that it can be consumed by the other Bicep file, which we are going to create. We create a new file and call it VM Bicep. Target scope of this thing will definitely be resource group also. And then what this thing needs to know is, first of all, some parameters. Like we will need project name, blah, blah, all of this. We need that for the naming. And then what we also will need is the network interface ID, NIC ID string. This is the resource ID of the network interface card. I'm not even sure if this is what it is. Okay, so let's now call this file from our main Bicep. So remember, there we have a VNet group and a VM group. The VNet group gets passed to this thing. Let's do it this way. Let's do another module, VM, which is resources VM. That's the deployment name. It's going to be the VM Bicep, and the parameters will be, he's not having this, but he's having the NIC ID. And where can we get it from? Well, easy, from this VNet deployment. Because there it is in my outputs, and here it is, the NIC ID, because I defined it as an output in that file. Easy. So again, the same thing applies. Let me zoom a little bit out. So what will apply is order of things. So here is he first needs to deploy this because before he can deploy this, because it references something from here. So that's how Bicep determines order of things automatically. So if you are doing this, depends on the VNet deployment, you're doing it wrong. It's an array. If you use depend on, so you could do it, but he's marking it in yellow and saying you don't need to do that because this is unnecessary. I already can do that automatically because I'm seeing that you're using the VNet here as a reference, and that's how I know that it depends on that. You only need depends on in current Bicep versions if you want this deployment to wait until this deployment is ready for other reasons, which are not because of the relationship between the two, but for other reasons. I'm not talking about why here, but there are reasons, I can tell you that, where you need to wait. Okay, cool. So we're deploying this, and now we're calling it, and now let's slowly progress towards, okay, actually what we need to know, we need to deploy a resource, which is our VM, and it's a virtual machine, which comes from virtual machine from the compute provider. So let's do that, newest thing, and let's say require properties, still not doing it correctly. So now we are doing VM dash, and would be good if we would have a suffix variable again, so we don't repeat ourselves if we need. Let's take this out here. So this was a variable, we can totally do that. Define a variable suffix, which takes the lower project name in the stage, and maybe, just maybe, add something like, what is that? This is the suffix, which is project name and this. And maybe I'm not going to do that. No. I'm doing something else. I'm taking this in because I'm saying this is my project name 1. I'm not even sure if this is allowed. So let me go to, how long will it be? I don't know. Because there's naming restrictions on VMs, and I don't know how long this VM is supposed to be, but you can look it up. There is this cool thing, which is called, if I can find it, Azure Periodic Table. I will, look, it's azureperiodictable.com. You can search here for virtual machine. Virtual machine, where's virtual machine? Virtual machine Windows. This is strange. 15 characters max. So this tells you somewhere here, you can have 1 to 15 characters for a VM. This is not good. So I have to write down what the name would be. Let me see. This would be VM. Project name is CF. Then this is 1, and then this is demo. This is going to be, how long is it? 20. Too long. Is it? It's 20 characters. No, it's not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Where is it? Oh, 14 selected because I'm an idiot. Line 20. Oh. Okay, so it's going to match. But as you can see, this is the reason why a lot of naming conventions struggle with that. So probably you will do maybe something like that. VM1, whatever. I'm not going to do that. Find your way. Location is the location we get passed in. And then we need the properties of this thing. And let me watch a little bit on my side that I don't miss anything. Okay, so now properties. And of course, the virtual machine is a complex thing. So the first thing that we naturally need to understand is how powerful is this machine? This is called the hardware profile. The hardware profile has a VM size, and this is suggesting you stuff. And we need to select a VM size here. And it's probably good if this is a parameter later. For now, we are just selecting one. We're not sure if which one to select and stuff like that, because we don't know how powerful this is. At this point in time, let me add another video out with a new tool that I released for exactly this, because you have another profile, which is the OS profile, which is a little slightly complex. And this thing now needs, first of all, the OS type. I think, is it the OS type? No, it is the OS disk. What am I doing even? Oh, it's the OS profile, right? This is coming. And then we have the storage profile. That's what it is. So we have 3 profiles that we need to provide. On that profile, then, we have something like the OS disk, which we can define. Then on this profile, we have username and password and stuff like the Windows configuration, which we will talk about. And then what we also have is, I will see a network profile, a diagnostic profile, and then we have an image reference somewhere, which is on the storage profile. Here it is, image reference. which is the problem kind, because this is where you define, by defining offer, publisher, SKU, you need to define, if you're taking something from which Microsoft offers to you as images, we want to use Windows 11 here, but you know, you don't get any stuff here. And I created a tool. Let me show you what I mean. So I have Sublime here, and I have this neat little script running. So let me do this one by one. First of all, and I had a demo out, let me do the tenant ID coming from my AZ context. So that way I'm not exposing any secrets to you. This is my company's tenant domain. Let me grab a client ID in a way that you guys do not see it from an Azure Key Vault. That's how you do it in PowerShell as plain text into a variable. There it is. And let me get a client secret as well from the same stuff. And now what I can do, I can actually run a Docker container, which I created, and there's the video out. And this takes in all those parameters and will expose something on port 5000 locally on my machine. Let me do that. And it's pretty fast. And let me now go to this localhost 5000. And you can do that. This is a public image. If you have Docker running on your machine, you should be able to follow me. Whoa. So, as you can see, this is the codingfreaks Azure VM Offer Helper. Great tool. So, you select your subscription. I'm doing this on my test subscription and an Azure region. And I did it in a way that it's easier to find. So Europe is my region, West Europe. So why is this important? The subscription and the region are determining which VM sizes are available to you. And this combo box here is actually queried after you selected this. And if you change it, it's requeried. And now we get those, see those values. And let's see, what do we want to have? 4 cores with 8 gigs. Why not? This is the thing. And now this gives you for the hardware profile for your Bicep. This is JSON, I know, but you know, it's pointing you. Hardware profile VM size would be this. So let's take it out. Okay, let's go. Where's my VS Code? Here. Hardware profile VM size is this guy. Let's see if it works. Okay, standard A4. I think it's not that powerful. And I'll show you a way where you can look up what the price is later on, Azure Price Calculator, and there are some views in the portal. Okay, nice. Let's go on. Now, where's my tool? Here. Now, what I did here is, now it's about the storage profile and especially the image reference. So what I did, this is a long list of available profiles, if you will, of publishers who are in the Azure Marketplace providing virtual machine images. So what I did is, so that you don't need to scroll here, I put the most, for me at least, the most usually used ones at the top here in the ordering. So the one where you would find Windows 11 in is here, Windows Desktop at Microsoft Windows Desktop. Weirdly named, if you ask me. No space, no dots or anything. Then you have Microsoft Windows Server if you're searching for server OSs. Server HPC, high performance computing pack, not using that. And then we have, if you Ubuntu-based stuff, I put Canonical also to the top. But let's do Windows Desktop. So he starts to fill in stuff here. The offer would be Windows 11. This is the version that you're using. And then the SKU, whatever version you want to use. I'm going to be the Win11 25H2 Pro version. Remember, by doing this, when we talk about virtual machines, every time this thing about licenses come up, if you don't provide and purchase and provide, not provide actually, if you don't purchase and then own a special license for this virtual machine, you're not supposed in Azure to run production workloads on it. Okay, that's very important. There is no way, in other words, to put a product key into that machine. That's not happening. What you do in the Azure portal, you usually agree with a checkbox, yes, I have an own license, all is good. If you don't have this license, don't run production stuff on it. How would Microsoft know that you're not licensed? Well, easy. As a corporation, it could happen to you that Microsoft is kind of sus about what you're doing. And then what they do a license checkup. They come to you and they check all your licenses, including the stuff that's running in Azure. Obviously, they know what runs in Azure for a company, because why wouldn't they? And then they would say, well, actually, what runs on that machine? Please tell me. They can scan it. And if there's something running like 24/7, well, you're maybe screwed if you really run something there. So be very careful with that. Anyways, this is the whole purpose of the tool in the current version, to get those information out. Because believe it or not, it's otherwise, if you don't have this tool, it's pretty hard to get it. So we now know the values for the image reference. Let's go to VS Code and let's fill in the image reference here. So we now know the publisher is Microsoft Windows Desktop. Nice. The author, which needs to match the publisher, otherwise it's not going, is Windows-11. And the SKU is this one. So with those three informations now, Bicep and ARM understand which version of the OS system you're going to need. Okay, but we're not done yet. So we have, let me put this a little bit to the top here. So hardware profile, fine. Storage profile, fine. Now OS profile comes into place. Now it gets a little bit complicated. So the OS profile, because we're using Windows, is I think the Windows configuration, first of all. And you can omit this, but I would not suppose. I need to look it up. So first of all, we are going to provision VM agent set to true in order to have control over this VM. Enable automatic updates, whatever you want. Let's say false, because we're just doing some tests. And now the time zone. And this is very important. It becomes important later a lot. So a lot of people are now searching, what is the time zone format I need to use? And I need to look it up. For me, it is this string. Look. So now you're asking, how do I get the string? Well, there are several answers to that. And you could Google it or whatever. What I'm doing is .NET to receive this. If you're interested in how do I get a list of available time zones so that I can understand where I go. Actually, maybe I find it real quick. So what is the format of the time zone, whatever, called? I don't know. This is GPT. Presents UTC or what? Indicating coordinate UTC or no, I mean the format of is typically, it was a stupid question. UTC offset, do we still get something? Like, what is the time zone? Which, this, I didn't want it. Which standard name is in which standard is this time zone defined? Is it able? Named in specific. Okay, it's the Microsoft Windows time zone database, so it's Microsoft specific. So I don't think it's a standard. So can we look up this? Default time zones? Is that the thing? West, empty. There it is. Austria. Here you get it. You have this list. I will probably put this link into the description. So let me put it here, that I don't forget it. I will add it to your to the comments. And now you can look up here for your Windows 11 time zones. There it is. And you can look up your country and then you know your time zone. Okay, cool. That gets important pretty soon. Nice. With that distraction, I think we can stop my image. And the way I called it, I just stop it and it will destroy the Docker container. The image is still there, but the container is no longer running. Okay, cool. What else? Here we defined now in which time zone we live, and with that, the OS profile should be good. So now the next, not OS profile, the Windows configuration. Now on the OS profile as well, we, depending on what we want to do, we have admin username and password. So let's define an admin username, which is codingfreak, probably, and it's already yellow, and an admin password, which is a bad one, because I will delete this. This is test 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know. And now we get an instant warning that both of those properties should not be hard-coded into Bicep. So what do? The solution is pretty easy. We add two parameters, which is param admin username as a string, and it must be given, so no question mark, nothing. And param admin password also as a string. But this guy, and we need to do that here. Oh, why? Otherwise, he's not going to be happy. There is this thing to say this is a secure value. So this should not be exposed anywhere during Bicep execution. So now we can go here and say, okay, I got it. Admin username. And you wouldn't believe how many times I messed it up. Username, password. Very important. What else can we define here? Let me look it up. Yes. We should define a computer name. In other words, the name that is displayed under Windows inside of the virtual machine. Okay, CF1 would be a good one. codingfreaks 1. Nice. And then we have the Windows configuration in place. Everything is good. So looks good. OS profile. We're not done. Not nearly done. So, because we have the network interface, what we need to do is, and I again look it up. So yeah, this is now the network profile. You see the pattern, it's all about profiles. So now we have network interfaces, plural. It's an array, kind of surprising a lot of times to people who are not used to do it in Bicep. So the point here is, let's do it this way. So in fact, using Bicep, you will understand out of the pocket that it's actually no problem to, at this point in time, define as many, not as many, but a lot of network interfaces to be connected, network cards, to your virtual machine. You usually do that if you have an appliance that you deploy, like, I don't know, let's say a firewall. If you deploy a firewall as a virtual machine, you usually are doing it because you're using something like your license, like a Sophos or what else, a Cisco, whatever. There are images for that from your vendor. And then usually you have at least two network cards because outbound traffic, inbound traffic, separated, DMZ in between, stuff like that. And then you need several network cards. So that's why it's an array. The Azure portal, if you do create new virtual machine in Azure portal, that's not what it shows you. Okay, so that's why people used to ask me when I was more into, hey, what can I do with Azure? And obviously everybody was, can I do a virtual machine in Azure? And I said, yeah, you can do that. It's not really cloud, but okay, whatever. So they wanted to deploy virtual machines, and then they thought, oh, there's just one network card, because they did the create new in the marketplace, and then there was just one network card at that time in the UI. And then you had to come to the idea to actually later go to the deployed virtual machine to add more cards. Same is true, by the way, for the data disks, which we forgot to do on the storage profile, and we have to do it now. So now we have the network profile is done. We connected the virtual machine to a network card, which already existed, by using the resource ID of the already deployed network interface. OS profile is kind of complete. We talk about those two things because they are parameters and we're not done yet. What we can do, of course, is we can add descriptions, the password of the VM admin, and of course the username of the VM admin. This is kind of the thing, this descriptions. My colleagues often say, I'll do it later. Guess when it happens? Never. The name of the VM admin, username, better. So this way, so we will later have to deal with this. Last thing here for the moment is the storage profile. So the OS disk we need to define the OS disk. So the create option that we will use is we're not attaching an existing one. We're not copying it over from another place. It's not an empty disk, which would be possible. So no operating system. In that case, you don't need to have an image reference from image. So because we defined an image reference, we need to say image. So that says, okay, I need to look up here what to deploy on this machine. Great. I'm not talking about this today, but the option that you say attach should tell you that there is a way to keep your OS disk somewhere and then reuse it to deploy to a fresh VM, which is kind of the simplest backup options for whatever you do on your virtual machine. It's not that straightforward as you think here. There's also a restore option if you backed it up from, which is also an option. But we're doing the straightforward thing today. So the next thing we are going to do on that OS disk is the OS type, which is going to be Windows. So there are only two types. So we are telling him Windows. Let's put that first because we did it here. It has to match. Okay, so far so good. Next thing, the caching is going to be read-write. And I'm not sure if this is a good advice, but I'm still doing it. I have to redo my knowledge there. And then, very important is that you define your own name for the disk, guys. So why I'm saying that is, if you don't do that, you lose control over naming. So let's go to disk instead of VM, and then the same one. And then what I do is disk OS, because what I could do, I could deploy additional disks. So there is something called additional data disks. I'm not sure. Where is that? Yeah. This is under data disks here. And now this is an array. And you could deploy more additional data disks. Every data disk has its own definition. And as you can see, it's just another disk. This is empty. Then loon is, I don't know, 0, I think, and so on, so on, so on, so on. And you will deploy data disk. I'm not going to do that. Why is this important? Because of persistence. Usually, if you do this, you will see in a second that this really deploys stuff into Azure. So this disk will be an actual resource that you can use. And you can back it up and you can reuse it. So you can delete the VM without deleting the data disk. And then what you can do, you just attach the same data disk, which has some, I don't know what it is, to another VM. It's possible. Okay, let's go on. And now let's think about what this means. So as soon as we defined those parameters, we told, first of all, this is secure. Second of all, this admin username and admin password need to be passed into this Bicep file, which means instantly, let me copy this Bicep file got read because it says you need to add those two properties. Let's do that. Not this way. Let's add it here as parameters as well. Same options. And now we can pass it through. Admin username is my admin username. And admin password is my admin password. Okay, cool. We got it. But this just moved the problem one level up. So the next thing is that now this parent file is invalid and says, okay, wait a minute. You have to provide those two things. So let's do it in order. And let's say, okay, this is now the moment in time where we can say, okay, listen, this is coding freaks. Okay, nice. But now if I put it here, and tell it, this is that. So that's probably not going to work because what will happen now, this is not a secure thing. Can I mark it here as secure? Yeah, I can't. So let's see what happens if I say build this for me, build like validate. Bicep build the main bicep. What is happening? He's doing it. Okay, nice. I got this JSON and maybe it's a good point in time to see this is the representation of the real JSON that we just wrote in Bicep so far. So the whole thing ends up in 450 roundabout files with all parameters and stuff. And the weird syntax, here's our stuff that we did. So because Bicep is a transpiler, this is what you really do. So this is the password, and I think it's not a good idea. So this is not a good idea, because now you have the secret of the password, which you really need, here in your Bicep file, which you parent file, which you then will commit usually into your, because it's infrastructure as code, into your repo. No way you do this. So what now? How do I pass it in? Is the next question. Well, we use an Azure service to retrieve this. So what we do, and hopefully you have this prepped in your environment. Let me put out my thingy here. This is this one. So what you hopefully have in some other resource group in your subscription, or not necessarily in your tenant, is something which is called an Azure Key Vault, which is the thing to go. So during the deployment, you can take out a thing called secret, and use it during your deployment. And I show you how. So let's look up my tenant for Key Vaults. So I'm on my test subscription. And my test subscription, let's filter for that subscription here, apply. And now let's go and remove that. And what I have is on every subscription, because I'm doing cloud adoption framework, I have automation for that, whatever. I have a management group, resource group on every subscription that I have. And this management group every time has a key vault. And I can use this because I need a key vault which needs to exist before I deploy my resources. And because of this, I cannot deploy in my Bicep that I show you a key vault and then define a password there in order to deploy my my VM password, because I just want to run one deployment, not two, in order to deploy my VMs. So that's why you need to pre-plan a lot of stuff. So let's go to the key vault and let's actually create a secret. So there's a very important secret, a lot of others. So generate a secret, which is codingfreaks VM admin password. This is exactly the password. Let's remember this. Okay, so now you have this thing in place. Let me remember what the key was here real quick in my Bicep. Here. So this is just remembering. So what now? What you do is there is an AZ command in Bicep, and this currently has only one thing, get secret. And this now says, okay, give me subscription ID, resource group name, key vault name, and then the secret name in that key vault. And if you want to, even the name of the version, which is a number, so that I can reference during the deployment and take the secret from that key vault. It's great. So what we have subscription, resource group. This is key vault name, and the only thing we already know is this one. So how do we get those three informations here? Subscription, resource group, key vault. So there's a simple way. If you're on your key vault, just go to overview and then go to the JSON view. And here you have it in the resource ID. So the first thing is your subscription. Copy this value and put it here. Then the next thing is your resource group, which is RG management. Here we go. Okay. And from that moment on, it's easy. And there's another way to show it, but you know, I always want to show you if you need that, and then we can take it out here. Of course, those of you who are a little bit more familiar with this would claim that, hey, Alex, you don't need to go to this blade. It's all here. So we have resource group, subscription, name of the key vault, and then here we go. Yes, it's true, but sometimes you need more information from this, and some resources don't have it like that. So I showed you two ways. Actually, this. So now we do not expose the secret. And the trick is, on the key vault resource, you can select role-based access control in order to control who is able to retrieve this secret from the key vault. That's how you do it. And it's a lot of work to bring this into action. So actually, fine. Let me do this now, and let me try with this naive approach to deploy a virtual machine, which probably will take some time. Because now a virtual machine, it's really quick when you have common images that you deploy, but probably, first of all, I did something wrong. Probably. We will see. So that's the virtual machine. That's good. And we have everything attached to it. Okay, cool. Hardware, storage, OS, and network profile. Of course, you could define this anywhere else. You can, for instance, on the hardware profile, this thingy could be a param that you passed in, so that this thing is more reusable. This was quick, and because it's failed. Okay, of course. So he says it's not valid to the blah blah blah. See the inner arrows. I will. Is invalid parameter. The value of parameter image reference version is invalid. Wait a minute. Image reference version. That's interesting. Image reference. Oh, version. What is that? What is the version? I'm not even sure what the version is. Specify the version of the platform, image, or marketplace to use. Major, minor build, or latest. Okay, let's do latest. Do this. I forgot that in my tool. I have to do that in the tool. I'm not even sure if I can get the versions for this SKU. Probably the available versions. I need to improve my tool. I will. Let's see if it works now. What we learned from that is, if it's green here, it doesn't mean it succeeded. Always check if it really succeeded. Scroll a little bit up, and usually you get some hints which point you in the right direction. Okay. Why did I say that this virtual machine actually is not ready? Because, and it's again failed. Okay, there's what's going on. Cannot be boot hypervisor generation 2. Why? What selective VM size cannot boot hypervisor generation 2. So this create option, please check the hypervisor generation of the image matches the hypervisor of the select VM size. I don't even know what this means, but I'm guessing that this version is outdated. So what I need to do is I need to rerun my tool. Let's do that. Let's repeat my command. And I think I need to use a more recent machine. I think that this is what I need to do. Is it the same session? We will see if this works. Local host, no, 5,000. Is it working? Great stuff. So again, this is my test subscription. This is my region. Let's do that. VM size, this is what it is. So the A ones are probably outdated. So let's go to the more recent ones. And doing this, maybe we can talk about the pricing. So what do we do? 4 cores, and I should add a filter here, to be honest, later. It's still early. So we have the V4 stuff. Where are the V's usually say which version it is. Which one is probably the one I need? And this is really hard to say. Let me take this as an opportunity to talk with you about the resources where you can solve this. Okay, if you go to create in the portal, this is the one thing where it's actually very useful for, not the resource group. Go to some resource group, go to create, search for Windows 11, Marketplace. I don't like it, but it is what it is. Create. Okay, here we go. 11 Pro, this one probably. So let's see. So in this window here, the one thing which is pretty important is, where is it? See all images. I don't like it. See all sizes here. So this list is kind of usually actually, yeah, this is now showing you unsupported stuff. Unsupported because availability zone, unsupported architecture, whatever. Bless me. Okay, so what it shows you, hopefully, is like, let's say the D series V4, V6. So that could be something. And now you can filter better than you can do in my tool, whatever. But I will improve my tool. And then this is telling you the purpose. So general purpose is like just a VM, not, you know, compute optimized or whatever. So let's find a decent one. What is this guy? 2 CPUs. Not that I would recognize something cheap like that, but for the sake of the demo, I would say this is okay. Let's try if I can deploy this. And let's see if we run into different errors. Is this something which gets, where is it? VS V6 is underscore V6 is okay. As you can see, this suggestion says, I'm not doing it for you. I'm only aware of V3. I think it's outdated at this point in time, the Bicep module, because look at this. Could be. It's nearly a year old. Let's try this one. I think it's the VM size which gets in my way. How do I know? Gut feeling. Because it's usually something which is the limit on my subscription, on my region. It's too old, whatever it is. And this is what I'm saying. This stuff, I need to improve my tool a lot in order to help guys not to run in this issue. But there's no real good endpoint, as far as I know, on the Graph API to just retrieve the information. This is outdated. I don't know where this database is. Probably there is some. I need to figure it out in order to give you guys more cool UI experience in my tool, which is this one. And to say, well, actually, I want to have a button to have more decent selection here. And maybe I get the pricing as well. Speaking of pricing, Azure price calculator, which when it comes to calculator, when it comes to VM pricing, is pretty important. So you go here, add to estimate a virtual machine. And then on that virtual machine thing, you can say whatever. It's not remember to select your region. Europe. Where do we have it? Europe. There it was. West Europe. Should match because pricing can differ. Windows, OS only. Tier is standard. Category is general purpose. And now we selected, what was it? D2SV6. Is that working? Failed. So D2S, is that available? It's not. And I think this tool is pretty decent. So let's say what is here supported? DC, and there's a code to this, and I don't know the code. DV5, is that a thing? It is 2 vCPUs, 8 gig, and that's the price per hour. 20 cents per hour, US cents. If you do it 730 hours, which is, by the way, 1 month, approximately, it's 151 bucks, which is freaking people out. I don't know. Do you know where the API is? Probably looking in your face, no. So, what is it? D, and now we get it, D5, D4, I would say this guy, DV5, is that a thing? Because the other one could not be deployed. DV, what's going on? DV5, and this is it giving me the code? It's not giving me the code. Oh, guys, this is hard to do. How can I deploy a virtual machine? I'm so lost right now, same as you would be. What is he supporting? He's saying recommended is standard D4S V3. Let's do that. Because this is now a nice filter based on my standard D4S V3. Let's see. Standard D4S V3. Because I'm suspicious about this, let's go to my tool and see, is it here? Standard D4. What is D? Where is it? 1, 2, 3. It's alphabetically sorted, which is standard D4S. Lost. D4. What is it? SV3? Was that what it was? D4SV3. I think that's what it is, right? Standard D4SV3, 4 cores, 16 gig. Okay, decent. What is the price for this? Let's go here. Standard D4. Can we find it? D4. You see how this is all over the place, different. DDS, is that? No. D4 series, I think it's D version 4. And now when we select 4 CPUs, that is double the price, double this. But don't take this to serious. I'll talk about this in a second. This is not what it should be. We talk about this. Okay, let's select this. And let's try this out now. Let's deploy this. Let's see what happens. So why do I say and it's about the pricing, that this virtual machine is not ready. What we actually need to deploy, and we need to remember this later, is we should deploy a default shutdown time called an auto shutdown. Of course, if you have a firewall appliance running, you will not deploy an auto shutdown, because what does that mean? My firewall is offline during these hours? No. But the firewall is one of the examples where you have a constantly running machine. What you should use virtual machines for, or what I use it usually for, are two cases. First of all, so-called jump hosts. We will talk about this when it comes to debugging of virtual network issues and what to do. Okay, and testing virtual networks there, a jump host could be pretty important. Okay. The second thing is you want to do some calculation or on-demand VMs, whatever. Like I need a VM with a certain, I want to try out stuff. I want to give somebody a working environment without, because he has a Mac, he needs a Windows. So let's give him an Azure virtual machine to log him on, whatever. So those machines usually have a time when they should not be on. So in other words, we could tell Azure, depending on our time zone, when to shut it down. And that is what the auto shutdown is, and it can spare you a lot of money. Because as you've seen, if you forget to shut down a machine, this can cost you heavily. Like $400 or whatever per month just for one virtual machine that you forgot to shut down, not good. I will show you how to do it in Bicep. Like clicking in the portal is not an option, because still we could forget it. Because we do infrastructure as code, we are good to go, because all that we say is run the script, don't go into the Azure portal, you don't even have the right. If you want a machine, use my script, and then the script comes up. While this is running now, while this is succeeded, also pretty fast, right? Let's look it up. What did we actually do finally? It's, what is it, 1 hour and a half of the usual stuff with codingfreaks, I would say. Again, I want to talk a lot. I will do sections there, and that's why I take my time. Okay, resource groups. Is it still filtered? It is. So now we have, let's filter it here even more for CF, so that's a bit of click experience. The VNet. The VNet, and I like it a lot because I messed it up, obviously. This is everything here and nothing here, right? So good example of me bringing stuff out of the box. What did I mess up? Let's look into my main Bicep. What I probably did, yes, I told this thing to deploy to the VNet group because I'm so dumb sometimes. So let's fix it. And let's actually delete this stuff here. So we don't want this to be here. Good example to see. But he deployed actually just two things. Let me remove this by hitting those two things, delete. Let's see if this button is working. Let me see. Force delete to virtual machines. Yeah, don't put it into the bin. But look it up. The OS disk was rightly named. The VM was rightly named. And I don't get this one. I don't get it. It's not corrupted. It's just what it is. Let's delete it. Okay, I just messed up. So just repeat what I did wrong. I had a module VM, but I decided to deploy everything from that model into the VNet group. And that's why it appeared in the VNet group. Natural thing. Okay, while this is deleting, let me tell you another thing. So if I looked in, when I looked in my subscription, I showed you this management resource group, and you maybe have seen this guy. So this is a network watcher. Let me tell you, if you, before you deploy any VNet resources, any virtual network group, before you do that, don't deploy your own network watcher explicitly, and by doing it, name it correctly, give it an alert rule if something goes on, because this is like a network monitoring endpoint. If you don't do that, then as soon as you deploy your first virtual network resource, no matter what it is, Azure will deploy a network watcher for you, which will be named, and this is a famous one, and you might ask yourself where this is coming from in your stuff. It will be named Network Watcher, I think RG. I think something like that. Which is, whoever did this is Microsoft, at Microsoft, needs to be punished. I don't know what could possibly bring you to the point that this isn't a good idea? So what's important about Network Watcher, any VNet resource needs one. So that's why auto-deployed if not found. Okay, that's number one. Number two, there can only be one per subscription. So this is, if you want, in any Azure subscription, before you deploy any stuff, what you should do, you should have two resources at least deployed, which is a network watcher and a keyboard. Because doing professional Azure means you need to store your secrets somewhere, certificates, whatever. This is the keyboard. And you need a network watcher. It costs you nothing to have one. And you will get one no matter what you do. And I have seen like deployments fail because people had a policy on their subscription applied, a naming policy for, let's say, a network watcher. And because this naming policy probably is not this, the deployment of the virtual network resource was failing with obscure errors and people got lost. So do yourself a favor and prep your subscription before you deploy anything to it. This is Cloud Adoption Framework stuff, also called CAF, and it's far beyond the scope of this thing. I deleted the stuff. I can redeploy now using VS Code, of course. Clean it up, deploy again. So it should go now to the correct subscription and it should be pretty fast, as I said. So there's a lot of stuff to keep in mind for the seemingly simple thing like virtual machine. Exactly the reason why I decided to do this series. This video is a bit long because there's a lot to talk about virtual machine. I hope to make additional videos to talk about now upcoming stuff. So I will end the video today with auto-shutdown, hopefully. And then next time I want to try out this virtual machine. This is not fitting into that video here. I want to try out this virtual machine, redeploy it first, then try it out in order to showcase you guys. This is nothing. This is pets versus cattle. Yeah, I don't know if you know that. Pets like cats, dogs, whatever. This is how admins used to treat their system, which is not the cloud way to do it. Cattle, like, I don't know, cows, sheep, whatever, which usually just have numbers and are kind of replaceable, which is a bad thing to say because, I don't want to get a cow to be killed, but whatever, I like a steak as well. So what do you do? Anyways, so those cows usually don't have names like Linda, Belinda, whatever, in a big herd. They have numbers. The same idea applies to your resources in scalable environments, architecture. It's not only cloud, it's also on-prem. But on-prem, it's harder to achieve. The virtual networking and virtual computing allows you to have repetitive deployments and multiple deployments, fast, quick, and so on, by separating the OS disk as a resource from the virtual machine, the network interface from the virtual machine. What you actually can do, you have everything prepped. You have network interfaces hanging on the network wire, having an IP address, a private one, be ready, and then that's it. You just plug your VM in, plug the OS disk into your VM, attach it, so-called if it's prepped, and then you're good to go, and you have fast deployments. So it succeeded now. Let's look it up. So that's the plan. So nothing changed in our VNet here. Resource group, where am I? VNet, RG management, I'm an idiot. VNet. So the VNet also, nothing changed. We have the NIC, security, and the virtual network. So now we have the VM demo, and all that goes here is two resources, right? And this resource, let's look it up, currently does it have a NIC? Deployed, let's see, it is network settings. It should show us at least the private. Yeah. You see here that it's connected to a network interface. It could be multiple, that's why it's a drop-down. And now it understands that, you see, it shows here the network security rules from the NSG, which it got by the network interface. And now this is shown here, and now we know that our private IP address is that. Okay, so what actually is missing here, we cannot access this because we are currently not having a hub and spoke infrastructure. We don't have gateways to connect ourselves with a VPN endpoint into this. So how do I reach this? This thing is hidden from me. This IP address is not reachable over the internet. I cannot connect to that guy. So what I can do, I can actually go and do a public IP address, and I can deploy that here in the VM. So let's do it a little bit in the VM thingy here. So let's do it before resource pip, which is for me for public IP address. Here it is, version issued latest, require properties. Okay, again, this is pip, and then probably the same as it is here. That's my public IP. Okay, so it matches my one machine because my other machine probably gets another public IP. So then my location should be again the same location. Nice. My properties should be, and is there an SKU? I wonder. Yeah, there's an SKU this time. And the name is, I think it's a standard. I'm not sure. Here is, I think it must be global, but I'm not sure. Here global standard. I'm not sure about that. Let's see that in action later. So, and what we will do here is, this is a public IP. And let me see if this is, I think that's it. And it's a bad idea in corporate environment, but we need it. So, and then what we need to look up in the network profile, I'm guessing, just guessing, network interfaces, and then does it have a public IP network interface configurations? Is it here? Required? No. Network interface, let me look it up. Where's my public IP? Public IP, and maybe I need to do this in a cutout. Let's see. Where can I define a public IP for that thing? Oh, is it the network interface? Oh, I think it's the network interface, guys. It's even better because I'm an idiot again. So let's take this out. Let's go to the VNet deployment. Let's put the public IP, first of all, in here to have it near on the card. And let's see, is this able to have something like a public? How is it going? Which direction? This is a pip. And then the network interface, let me see. Where is that? Let me pause the video for a second. I'll check it out. Yes, it's on the NIC. I think it's a property on the NIC. It is? Is it not? I have a component for that. Public IP. So it is a property on the network interface, which is called public IP address. What's wrong with this? That's interesting. It's no longer there. What do I do wrong? This is, oh, it's in the IP configuration. Oh, it is, this is hard to see. This is the default configuration. Is it in the properties? And here, yeah, here it is. Pip for public IP ID. That's what it is. And he's not happy because this is probably an object. Yeah, ID, pip ID. Oh. I think it's okay to fail. So now we have the public IP deployed in the VNet for our virtual machine. It's all in the VNet. Not ideal, but anyways. Can I do... No, it's okay. It's okay this way. Let's deploy this. And let's now have the VM. Where is the public IP of the VM? No, it's on the NIC, and that's why it has on the VM. Keep calm. Deploy this. Let's see what happens. And I think it takes some time for the public IP to be deployed. Let me just see. NIC type standard. That's what I did. I did this, and then what's the public IP? Yeah. And it's probably the SKU. Okay, so please list deployment. And I think it's the wrong combination. Public IP. I knew it. I knew that this is going to be public IP. So standard and global. Maybe standard v2 and not global. Regional. Try it. Why not? Because we can. Okay. Cool thing about that is the VM still is running, or it's already deployed, but not reachable. But while it's running, we just deploy a public IP to the VNet adapter as soon as we can do it. No. So standard v2 and global. And as soon as this fails again, I need to figure this out, guys. So the public IP default in my lookup thingy here is what? What is my default values? It is, do I have default? Failed again. So he says standard v2 SKU, what is it? It says deploy operation failed. A low must have a location method set to static. Thank you. I'm an idiot. Properties. Actually, that's where I'm. A location. Where is it? Allocation method of the public IP. This is the public IP. Where's the allocation method? It's probably in link public IP address, migration, net gateway, public IP address version here. Static. So good thing, because this thing will not change its IP address, IPv4 address. Let's hope that this is working. Bear in mind, this costs money. I'm not sure how much. Let me see. Public IP. And this is, again, IP addresses to estimate. Why not call it public IP? I'm not sure. So what this is, West Europe again. And I need to check if my deployment actually runs while I'm doing this. Where is West Europe? Guys, this is interesting for you. Oh, it's global. Is it global? I'm not even looking into this. This is standard. I did standard. It is an IP address, and this comes with 0. What is going on? Why is it 0? It's 0 upfront cost? I didn't know that. This is okay. Standard. Global. Still 0. I think. Should I have traffic costs or something? Okay. I'm good. So again, failed. So now, regional. Okay. It's not global. It's regional. Clear. Go. So standard v2, regional, static. Okay. I have to know that. v2 is always better than not v2, right? Okay. Still failing. SKU property is set to creation time and cannot be changed from standard v2 to standard v2. On resource update for resources. Meaning, he deployed one already with different options. That's what I'm reading. So let's see. Is there a public IP in that resource group, which is VNet? Probably there is. There it is. And I want you to disappear. Delete. Delete. Is that working? Oh, yes. Sometimes this overlay doesn't come when you click. I don't know why. Probably it's not my business. So let me see. Let me stop my container. I think I don't need it anymore. I can clear this screen and finally close it. Could have closed it without clearing. Anyways, I will now redeploy. Okay, let's see. Can I deploy? And then this deployment just should give me a public IP address, which I actually can check. And then, as I said, connectivity comes next time. The last missing thing I will do is the auto shutdown on the VM. That's the last thing for this video. And yeah, I will show you in a second. I just prep it already. This is deploying. And there is my failed. Is it failing but doing it? Is this what's happening? No. And he says, what is it? This is not good. Standard v2. Okay. Standard v2 SKU public can only be attached to standard v2 SKU net gateway. Got it. Standard v2 is not for us. NSG. Okay. Where is my, not NSG, my public IP. So guessing standard. Guessing. Guys. So this is, again, in my module, I cannot find what my default values are for that. Anyways, I'm just trying out. So, and then the auto shutdown. Let me do maybe, again, failed. He did it. He did it. No, he did not. Okay, thank God. So, at creation time. So, what do I do? Let me find out what my, finally, and I have to cut this probably, VM. So, what is my public IP? My public IP is this, and I did it with SKU. SKU will be regional, and SKU standard and regional is my thing. And then it's not going to be static, I think. Allocation method is this one, static. Yeah, standard, regional, static. This is my setting I always use. Public IP allocation model. Interesting. That is very interesting because SKU property is set at creation time and cannot be changed from standard v2 to standard. So that tells me there is some resource there. Okay, this is interesting and I like that it's here because let me find out if there is, I don't know, is there purging of IP addresses? Is this IP address there for a longer time than it is shown in the Azure portal? Probably. So let me find IP address, public IP addresses. So is it, see what I mean? It is still there. It is still here, even if it's not shown. It's not associated to anything. Can I delete this guy? Delete, please. This is the reason why I cannot put it. It got an IP address, but I need to delete it using in the public IP address blade because it's not associated any longer, but it's still here. Which is not the best thing to, in order to understand this better. Now it's gone. Let me try to deploy again. Make a little break, and hopefully it works out. Okay, finally succeeded. Okay, let's prove it. Guys, it was not easy. And I was not expecting it to be. Okay, lie to me because you cache. I totally get it. I'm calm. I'm not hitting. I like this view. Okay. If I hit F5, I lose my history here, and I don't want to do that. Do I have to? There it is. So this is my public IP. And now my problem is, let's go to my VM. And the change on the VM instantly is I have probably a public IP. This is it. So let's test it out. Let's go to my infamous tool pping, which I wrote. Go to my blog. It has pping. Let's do this 3389. Answering the question, is port 3389 reachable on that machine? And it is. It's open. That's what my tool is doing. Ping with 1P. It's the system thing saying this machine is there answering ICMP, which I think, I don't even know if they are doing it. No. So if you want to know if your deployment worked out in Azure, this is working. My pping is working because it's going for a port and not sending ICMP packages in, which are going to be filtered. And that means my VM is there. Let's do the final thing, which is the auto shutdown. Okay. So let's go here to my VM bicep, which will be the final thing. And it's not an option on the VM. It turns out it is an additional resource. So let's call it resource auto shutdown. So this is from Dev Test Labs, believe it or not. And then it's called schedule. Schedules, you have to know shit like that. And now Look at this, 2018. Okay, I get it because it's not a new resource. Leaving it at this time, I'm not sure if this is what you should do. So what we would name it. So let's say shutdown, because it's not visible, VM, and then the VM.name, so that when we look for that, we know which one. So then the location of this thing is our location. Okay, so now it goes. Status should be enabled, please. So please shut it down automatically. Cool. Task type, you have to know that. And I just recognize I have to put that into my tool. I have a lot of stuff to put here. So that is the name that you need to give the schedule. There are schedules you can have. Give it this name. It means this is a schedule with the purpose of shutting down a virtual machine. Okay. Daily recurrence, now gets interesting, is time. And then what you need to provide here is an auto shutdown time in the following format. And this is our minute. This is the time it expects. Like this will be 7 p.m. If you're from the US, this is 7 p.m. Okay, so let me go on. Time zone ID is the same time zone that we had. So I'm not sure. See here, this was our time zone, and we should enable. Where's my time zone? OS profile. There's the time zone. So this is the thing. Let me put that in a variable. Var time zone equals this, and it's a string. Can I do that? Yeah, I think I can do that. So let's use this to keep this in sync. It does not have to. Could be that you're shutting down based on another time zone than it runs on the machine. I think it's what it is. Okay, OS time zone. Then notification is, so what this means is, do not notify the user that it's going to be shut down, or do notify the user. Maybe enabled is a more friendly version. But this means a mail goes out. And that's why now I remember while doing it, let's not do the complicated stuff. And then the target, which needs to be shut down finally, is the ID of the just called deployed virtual machine. This is what you need to do. So let me check this in the portal first. This is a VM. And then we have auto shutdown. This is the option. And we want this to be set to yes and 7 p.m. on my time zone, which is kind of UTC +1, I think Berlin is my time zone, and then this should be enabled. But using Bicep. Don't do it by hand because it's not repeatable. Last thing, deploy the auto shutdown. Last thing means connecting to it and other deeper stuff. 1 hour 47 record. It's one of the longest videos in a long time. But again, I hope the section will help out, guys. I hope it still is valuable for you. I show you step by step. I show you myself failing on purpose because it happens all the time. No matter how long I'm doing Azure now, I still fail a lot. And I forget stuff. It's happening. The only thing that I can tell is over time, you get more and more failed, of course. You get more and more, more and more used to it, and you get more experience. So the thing is that auto shutdown is not here on that subscription. I think the reason could be when it tells you on that subscription, I cannot deploy an auto shutdown. It probably means that on my subscription, there needs to be, let me check. Where's my test? I could have been on the VM. Let's go to the subscription of the VM. If this happens to you, something like that, you should go to the resource providers, and then we should look up if we find something like schedule. So there is a resource provider, Microsoft Compute Schedule, which is not registered on that subscription. Let me register this. And I think that's the reason why it's not deploying my schedule. Because, so how do I explain this? 1 hour, okay. So this resource provider registration thing, it's like a security gate Microsoft brings into your subscription. And actually it's a good thing, okay? It's a good thing that it's there, because when you purchase a subscription and board it onto your tenant, by default, like the most common resource providers are already pre-registered in your tenant. In order to do some of the exotic stuff to deploy it, somebody with the appropriate rights need to register those providers into your subscription, which is why I say it's a good thing. I didn't do that here. And by the way, I think if you just click the button in the portal, it will do it automatically for you. I think so, because I never saw it fail in the portal. Another advantage of using Bicep is it's unnerving, but you start to understand how this works. Okay, this is registered now. In other words, me as an admin telling Azure, I'm fine with schedules being there. I hope this was the reason for that. I think so, makes sense. And I came to that conclusion because it said should be created in subscription, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds like this subscription, no, I'm not going to do it in this subscription, not because it's wrong, but because I cannot do it in that subscription. Let's see if it works. The other reason why it could fail now is because it might take some time for the resource provider registration to sync into the subscription. I do not hope so. I hope now finally we got a deployment. Let's see. It should be pretty quick, and it should then appear. Let's check it here on our VM. It should be, where is it, by the way? Is it automation? Is it monitoring? Where is this? Hidden. Operations, inventory, blah. There's a lot of stuff. Here's the auto shutdown. Operation, it's still off. Let's watch it. Is it working? I don't want to pause again because, oh, it failed. That's why. The schedule should be created in subscription. Yeah. And it says at least one. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. So basically, you could end the video, and you probably had ended the video and wait for the next one. But I still want to tackle this. This is my resource group. This is my deployments. There's one resource deployment failed. Which one failed? The shutdown. There it is. Error details. Is there anything else? Invalid schedule ID. Okay, invalid schedule ID. What could that be? Auto shutdown. Invalid schedule ID. Let me think about that for a second. Subscription is right. Resource group is right. And with name shutdown compute VM. Oh, is it maybe too long? I don't think so, because it worked. Okay, let's give it some other name. But if I do so, I don't know if it's because of my registration taking too long. Let's just retry it. Let's see. Some minutes went by. And let me maybe come back to the recording if I finally did it and found the solution. Guys, I Googled and I tried to be clever. It needs to be exactly this. I cannot believe this. I knew that at some point, but I didn't want this to copy out. But the name of the thing literally needs to be prefixed with that. Shutdown dash compute VM dash and then the name of the VM. There's no room for play here. Guys, seriously? It's so... Okay. I'm not even... Okay, let's see. I think the registration still was needed, and it's good that we covered that, but this is even better. This is even better. It's a resource coming from the dev test lab, which means it comes from dev test and never made it to the compute provider. Okay, let's live with that. It's from 2018. Okay, so this is now going to be 8 years behind us. It worked. So all of this was just because of that. Refresh this deployment. Everything is good. Let's look up the machine. Is auto shutdown enabled? It is in the right time zone. I'm in this time zone. There it is. So with this, I could delete now this machine totally. And in order to do so, guys, all I need to do is delete actually those two things, or even just one of it. I could delete the VM and reattach the OS disk to it. I'm not going to do it. But next time we play around with this, I'm just deploying this newly. For the time being, I go here and never ever forget this. I stop the machine and it needs to be deallocated to not consume any money. A real shutdown machine operation in your virtual machine does not deallocate the machine. Be aware of that. The state, in order not to consume any money from your estimated money, must be stopped, dashes, deallocated. That's very important. It's now stopping the machine. Let's see. And now it's deallocating. It's not yet deallocated. While it's doing it, let's do my pping on it. It should be gone. Yeah, it's now closed. It's no longer there. So the network card already, or network layer, is not responding anymore. And now it's really stopped and deallocated, and it's not consuming any money. Still having the same IP. It will not change the IP, which is good. And we had some struggle with that, but okay, this is now finally working. What happened to my hair? I'm in despair. Whatever. I will share the sources, share some links, as I said. I will have the next video connecting to this thing. I will talk in the next video about stuff like, what do I mean by we cannot possibly, in a corporate environment or anywhere else, go with a just publicly exposed 3389. That's not a good idea. That's not what we need to do. So what else do we do? How do we do it? What is the gateway? Because I dropped this. I will cover this in the series, hopefully. Deploy a gateway with you, connect to a point-to-site VPN. All of this is upcoming. Private endpoints is upcoming. All of that. This is the purpose of this series. For now, I think after over 2 hours, no, 1 hour 56 on my recording time, I'm done. And I will now I will post this video as is, probably, including the all bugs. Hopefully you can skip. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.